Today, we're going to be walking through combining agents with traditional software. We're really excited to be able to share our experience with our Copilot and how we kind of have integrated that into our SaaS platform. I'm Sally Ann. I'm a product manager here at Arise, and with me, I have Jack. Jack, you want to do a little bit of an introduction?
Yeah, thanks, Sally. So my name's Jack. I'm a software engineer here at Arise, and Sally and I have been working on our Copilot agent for the last probably about half year.
Yeah. So we've made a lot of progress. I think if you've joined us for other ones, you saw our first session here we did on our AI search skill. Today, we're going to be introducing another skill we've been working on that ties closely together with our theme. I do want to give a little shout out for our next session. It's going to continue on, agents in the wild, but we're going to have a customer of ours, booking.com, coming and sharing their experience building their agent. So that's another one if you haven't registered. Definitely recommend it. So with that, let's jump in. So we're going to just high level cover like the roles of LLM and SaaS, some things that we're really excited about. I'll do a very brief introduction on Copilot and an overview of our latest skill that does the software integration. And then I'm going to pass it to Jack. He's going to go through a deep technical walkthrough of the skill, do a little bit of a demo, as well as share some insights and lessons learned. So with that, the power of LLMs and SaaS. Yeah, I think, as LLMs become more and more popular, there's definitely this opportunity to add LLMs to SaaS products. And I think we think there's about, three pros to doing this. One of them is just that enhanced efficiency. I'm sure everybody probably in the audience is using some kind of LLM to make their lives easier, to be more efficient. There's definitely an opportunity to bring LLMs to products that folks are already using to make that even more enhanced. I think there's also an opportunity for accessible interaction. So with things like this natural language interface, it just makes products more conversational and thus more intuitive for all types of users. And I think just having SaaS products that are powered with LLMs, it just makes automation of manual tasks easier, and then teams can really prioritize that higher impact work. And this is kind of three things that we're looking towards the future. I think there's opportunity for more natural interfaces. We have audio becoming more and more popular. That's just going to make entry points even easier and really, I think, be the default for product interaction. You see a lot of younger folks just kind of talking into their tablets or talking to their phones to interact with products. I think that's very much so going to be the future. I also think there's this opportunity from real-time learning. I envision a future where LLMs can do this kind of precise context-aware insights by like learning in real time. And then lastly, kind of reiteration of what I hit on the top there, LLMs will drive efficiency and elevate user experience across industries. I think that every job essentially will have this kind of productivity assistant with them, kind of like Copilot is for Arise. So we definitely believe in the power of LLMs, and that's why we've kind of integrated into our SaaS product. And that's a good segue into Copilot. If you're not familiar, Copilot is our AI assistant to help you observe AI. It really is built to take the guesswork and lift out of improving your applications. You're able to root cause and improve applications. You can automatically find insights and potential problems. And we've really just built all our AI expertise from our Arise customer success team, from our experience into Copilot. So all those manual best practices that we've built Copilot to be able to do them for users. So there's about 30 plus skills that Copilot has now. We started with just a handful. Jack, I can't believe we're already at that many. And our latest skill is a dashboard creation skill. So dashboards are a part of our product that are really valuable to both technical users and non-technical users. Pretty much any user of Rise can get value from a dashboard. But in full transparency, creating widgets can be a little bit of a tedious task. You can imagine if you have a dashboard with a bunch of widgets, you have to go through each one of those and configure them to your needs. And so we really saw this as an opportunity to bring Copilot. And just like we've thought with all of our skills of how could we use Copilot to make our users' lives better, and so we've created this dashboard skill. So it's really effortless to create. You'll see Jack show it off in a second. You can use natural language to describe what you need. Copilot's going to build it. It understands context. It understands adding filter and adding as many plots as you need to a given widget. And it also can take code and translate it. So think if you have like Plotly in a notebook, you could paste that into Copilot. It's going to translate that code for you. And it also has kind of this like error correction built into it. So we're really checking the schema to make sure if you don't spell your dimension exactly right, Copilot still knows what you mean and will pick the right dimension. And allows you to kind of iterate as well. So you can give it, build me this widget, and then you see the widget and decide you want something with a filter or something additional. You can kind of iterate back and forth with Copilot. So we're really excited about this skill. I think with that, Jack, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, and you can kind of show us the new skill.
All right, thank you, Sally, for the intro. Yeah, I think what makes us really excited about this skill is that this is the right page, right? Okay, cool. Uh, it makes us really excited about this skill is that it kind of combines, engineering and LLMs. And this is maybe the first, I think most of our other skills, the output is really like textual, so pretty natural fit for LLMs. In this case, the output is not, is actually a graph, right? It's a chart. And not only that, but the output actually affects, state in the platform. Before, our kind of apps were, or skills were a little bit more stateless, like it, shows some text to the user, or shows some response, but it doesn't actually modify the platform. So this is kind of our first foray into this type of skill. Um, so what I'm looking at here is the Rise platform. This is our dashboards page. As you can see, we have a bunch of dashboards, but I'm going to go into our test dashboard, and you can see, we have a widget here, but down here you can see this input for Rise Copilot. And you can see that we support time series, distribution, and statistics widgets. So most of the widget types that we have available to users just generally in our platform. So, maybe I want to get started with a time series widget. But oh no, I forgot to, add the metric. And, maybe I'm not sure exactly what I want to chart. So I can ask like, what dimensions can I chart for this model? Let me zoom in a little bit. So the LLM has access to kind of all the metadata of the model that I want to chart. So it can give you kind of a list of all the dimensions. And yeah, let me say I want to chart annual income. So let's see, chart annual income. Actually, it also, obviously does error correction, as LLMs are pretty good at. And so here's the chart that it generated, right? But yeah, I mean, maybe this line looks right, maybe not. Um, so what the LM actually returns is this JSON. And on the front end, we take this JSON and we turn it into a chart. But you can always look at the JSON and just make sure, like, hey, did it get my request right? So you can see, okay, it's looking at production, it's looking at this model, and it's using the average. That's maybe what I wanted, or maybe I could tell it to use sum. And it is the right dimension name, right? With underscore and everything. So, but maybe I want to modify this chart a little bit. And so if you remember from earlier, one of the dimensions was state. So maybe I want to add a filter to this chart for, annual income in California. So I can say add a filter for state equals CA. I guess it doesn't matter. And it'll take the kind of previous conversation, the previous chart. I don't need to say, I don't need to repeat annual income. And you can see here, like it added this filter to the chart. So, there's some other features of widgets and both line chart and bar chart that we support that, you can kind of add different kind of bells and whistles almost to the chart. So we go back and I'm satisfied with this chart. So I'm going to add to dashboard and it appears right here. So if you look at it, you can see, it has kind of some of the same details that we just saw in the JSON, including the filter. So, oh, and here we go. So yeah, that's all there is to it. And, honestly, if you look at this widget creation, there are a lot of fields. So, kind of to Sally's point about this is easier. I mean, if you are, creating a widget for the first time, there's one, two, three, oops, four, five, six, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 fields that you have to, kind of click through. And, of course, you get better as you get more familiar with it. But, I think even just doing this demo, kind of explaining to like the users, I was still able to create a widget in like about a minute. And that's already probably faster or as fast as if we actually use the interface itself.
Yeah. And you can imagine if you wanted to see accuracy and then maybe you wanted here, he did state California, and like maybe you want to see 5 different states and you have to kind of do all of that for each of those. And now you could tell Copilot to do it. So I think you're definitely right, Jack. It's going to save folks a lot of time. We do have some questions about the structured output, Jack. You're going to cover that in the technical walkthrough, or should we chat about that now?
Yeah, so uh I will chat about it, but let me just mention it really quick. So yeah, structured output in the back end. What we actually do here is we use um function calling to as the like structured output. So I guess it's not exactly the structured JSON output that maybe you're referring to, but rather we use function calls in order to kind of force um, OpenAI basically to respond in the JSON format that we want. And I'll go over the slides basically right now. And uh, there are some benefits to it. And to be fair, I think take everything I say with a grain of salt because things are moving so quickly that we haven't necessarily reevaluated all the different ways to do this, in very recently. So what I'm say, one way is better than another, might have changed in the last, month or two.
Yeah.
Um,
And it could change tomorrow with how fast things are
it-
developing.
exactly. So, all I mean to say is that this works well for us, and there's not much more that we can ask for, but of course, there might be some features that we don't even know about. Uh, okay, so, how does the architecture work? What did you just see? Um, So as I mentioned, we use function calling as a way to force the LLM to respond in a proper JSON format. And OpenAI function calls use JSON schema as their format, which is great because JSON schema, there's tons of libraries, lots of support for it. What we do in our like entire like Arise app is we use GraphQL. So also something that is like well structured, has a schema. And so you can see here, we have like this mutation. If you're familiar with GraphQL, it just means like a post call, like a create verb. We have a mutation for creating a line chart. And so that's kind of what you saw, which is us creating a line chart, and we take the arguments from this mutation and we convert it to JSON schema. And of course, being a modern engineer, I just take this schema and drop it into ChatGPT and tell it to generate the JSON schema for me. Um, but it's generally a pretty straightforward translation. And we take this JSON schema and we create a function definition using it. So you can see here on the right side, this purple box is really like the function definition, but using JSON schema. Um, Step two, now we have this router. So this is, kind of the, I guess, node that you're chatting with. So we have, two, three different, charts that the LLM can create, right? So there's the line chart, there's bar charts, there's stats widgets. Um, and so, we have this pretty small, pretty thin router that can just take your request. It'll see like, oh, you said time series, that means line chart. You said distribution, that means bar chart. But there's not too much logic in this. Most of the prompt is actually in the tool call itself or the tool function definition. And so, step three, this is where, the user asks a question. And the LLM basically is able to figure out, okay, first of all, you're talking about line chart. When you say annual income, that means that that's the dimension name that you care about. And then when you like and because it actually knows that it's a numeric value, so it also just automatically chooses average as the metric. And so this JSON that the LLM calls this tool with is effectively the JSON that you see in the UI, and that's this. So this is pretty close to what the function call itself looks like. And then on the front end, then we take this JSON and we are able to kind of call something on the back end to actually get the data and plot it. So I'm just gonna give a second to make sure everyone can like absorb that. Does that make sense? And I saw there's a question on the plot. So this we use recharts. This is just what we use on our front end. It's not anything that we built specifically for Copilot. We're just reusing the components in our dashboard library or our dashboard UI. And then the question on model providers building agentic frameworks like OpenAI moving into this direction. Um, I don't know if I have much of an opinion on this. I think from the beginning, we actually started working on Copilot about a year ago, and I think from the beginning we built all of this ourselves, so we don't necessarily use lane chain, we don't use like Llama Index. We kind of wrote this framework ourselves, and yeah, to be fair, I think we don't like maybe this is a complex use case, maybe not. Um, I would say that, we wrote it ourselves and we have maybe 1,000 lines of code in total about that like is the framework for this like these agents. Um, a little bit hard to say, because we haven't, strongly evaluated any of these other agentic frameworks. But what we wrote works for us, and I don't know if there's much else that we need from it. So
Yeah.
that,
I think
yeah, I
we've,
don't
we've
know.
we have quite a few sessions too on the like agentic frameworks, even in the one that Sarah just kind of posted in the architecture we talk on this. But yeah, Jack, I think that's a call that I make every time that conversation comes up, which is when we started building Copilot, like all of these frameworks that you're seeing appear today, like really weren't an option for us. And I think that for Copilot, we really like the control that we have as a result of building our framework from scratch. But we definitely have a ton of sessions we can drop on more agentic frameworks if you're curious to learn a little bit more about that.
Yep. Yep.
There is a question about whether we support out-of-box metrics or um, only the predefined ones. We actually do support both. So we do have custom metrics in the Arise platform. And so any custom metric that's defined is available in dashboards. And so Copilot can, of course, then use those.
Yep. Exactly. I think we have this is kind of where we can kind of actually combine two different skills. So we do have a skill where it'll write a custom metric for you. And we have this dashboard skill. So combining the two, it's like very interesting to see them like work together, basically.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, lessons learned. I kind of went over this a little bit, but we went with using function calls rather than responding with JSON. I think the structured JSON output, it was probably, I think it existed, but it wasn't necessarily like super great when we created this. Um, but we did use function calls rather than having the LLM respond in JSON like as part of its response. And a big part of that, it's not really for dashboards, but we have a prompt optimization skill. That's one of the 30 skills. And that was really hard to do because, these prompts have, multiple lines. There's, quotes, single quotes, double quotes, maybe tab characters, other special characters in prompts that the LLM has to return to us because, it's trying to optimize the user prompt. And having it output that in the like response stream made it, the JSON like impossible to parse versus having it call a function. So this is the prompt optimization call. Having it call the function made it a lot more reliable. Like the JSON was, definitely structured correctly, and everything that needed to be escaped was properly escaped. So that made life a lot easier. um, Function calling, and then not to or in addition, function calling I think allows us to respond with a response in this streams back. So it'll just in Copilot this or for this skill it's pretty succinct. It just says like I'm adding a filter, but it can stream the response and give back JSON in series. And I think that was something that we really like because, it gives that like acknowledgement of the user ask. And then I think last, we were talking about how the router itself has like a pretty thin prompt. So the majority of the prompt is in this JSON schema. So you can see here, this is the description for the metric. And if you're an engineer writing this JSON schema, you probably put like one sentence. It's the name of the metric, the end, right? So for for the LLM, we definitely need to be a little bit more verbose, like emphasize that it needs to be one of the enum values. If the user says a metric that doesn't exist, do not like just guess, et cetera, et cetera. So this is kind of where it looks more like a traditional LLM prompt. But what we like about doing it here is that like, both for the LLM, but also for us as humans, it's like the metric in the E number right here. Why not put the prompt on how to select this also right here, as opposed to, in a separate file somewhere else? Not only do I have to reference it, from one file to like the schema, but also the LLM may get confused, like, are you talking about this metric or maybe something else called metric that's similarly named? So this kind of made actually our lives a lot easier when we were creating this. And I think that's it. So I think there's a few more questions. Is this open source? Unfortunately not. I think our framework is actually not too Arise specific. So it's possible. We just haven't gotten
Yeah.
around to it.
I typed out an answer to this one here. I think we are going to work on open sourcing some amount of our architecture, be able to share that with the public. So stay tuned. I think that's something that we'll do in the near future. But yeah, Jack's right. Not open source right now.
Not now, but we have iterated. Now that we have quite a few skills, I do feel pretty confident that we've covered a lot of use cases. Not definitely not all of them, but yeah, it feels pretty good. And then are we caching responses? We're not. So a runtime architecture for Copilot, um, pretty pretty simple. Like when you make the request, we send that request alongside, some metadata about the model, right? So that's where you get kind of the information on like, here are the dimensions that are available. And we put the user request in a prompt, maybe we fill in some other metadata and we just send that straight to the LLM and then we just stream it back. So, to be fair, I think someone else was saying that, the latency is pretty small, and I was actually pretty surprised by that as well. We are using GPT 4.0, which, I'm sure people have noticed that it's way, 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 way faster than just, I think we're just using plain GPT 4 before. So anyways, um, we're pretty happy with the latency, especially for the skill as well.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I guess any last questions? That we can answer, feel free to drop them in. As I mentioned before, we have a few more sessions in this agent series. There will be sessions learning from customers outside of us, Jack and myself, who have built the Copilot, bringing in some other use cases. But I think there will be a few more that we'll do on Copilot as well. So definitely come back and join us. We'll be sending out this recording as well. But yeah, any last questions before we sign off? No. All right. Well, Jack, thank you so much for joining us. It was so much fun to be able to go through this new skill and share our lessons learned. And so thank you, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Sally, and thank you, everyone.
All right.
All right. See y'all.
Bye.